Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. We're going to give everybody just a minute to jump on. Okay, everybody, it's 1 o'clock, so we're going to get our presentation started for today. Please remember a few housekeeping rules. Please put your questions in the Q&A box. Carrie Potter, our educational support coach, will be sharing information in the chat menu for you to see, but remember you cannot respond back to Carrie in the chat. You'll need to do that through the Q&A box. Also, a copy of this presentation in the Google Drive with the handouts related to it will be shared in the chat box as well. So hello everybody and welcome to our presentation titled Youth Training Level 1, My IEP Learning the Basics. So please remember that Family Matters is not a legal service. We do not provide legal support or representation in any way, and no information we share with you today should be misconstrued as legal support or representation. Family Matters is funded under the U.S. Department of Education, but remember some of our material we share doesn't necessarily align with the beliefs of the U.S. Department of Education. We're not a representative of the U.S. Department of Education either. And Carrie and I had the opportunity a year ago last April to travel to Chicago to a seminar from Y Facets in which a lot of parent training and information centers came together to learn about this curriculum. This curriculum was designed with youth in mind. So we are asking that to make sure you let us know that you're here today and you're paying attention. So this presentation is designed for youth to understand more about their IEPs. So please remember, give us your undivided attention, silence your phones, pay attention, all those fun things there. Here's some more about our legal disclaimers. And let's have an icebreaker. So you're stranded on a desert island. You get to choose one celebrity to be stranded with. Who would that celebrity be and why? Please put that in the Q&A box. You know what? Gordon Ramsay. I like that one. He would be entertaining and provide lots of stuff to eat, right? Bill Gates. That's a good one. The Rock. I like that one. I've actually met The Rock. I get to share this when we teach this in classrooms. So Tom Hanks is mine too. So Tom Hanks would definitely have to be my celebrity I'd want to be stranded with because he's done it before. He's done a great job, right? So that's definitely who I would pick as well. So that's a nice little icebreaker. This is something we use to get our students engaged when we teach this presentation and this curriculum in the classroom. So it's always nice to think about, like, who would I want to be? Yes, Bear Grylls is another one that would definitely be up there. Who would I want to be stranded on a desert island with? Well, I would absolutely want to be with Carrie, of course, because, you know, Carrie's my partner in crime, but Tom Hanks is definitely my second choice. So why are you here today? You're here to learn more about your IEP, okay? And we're here to put the I back into your IEP. So you're here because you want to learn about your IEP, you want to learn how your plan supports you, why you have a plan, why your parents made the decision to get you an IEP. You want to know all of these things. Let's watch this little video. So as you saw there, every state in the United States of America has to have at least one parent training and information center. Our great state of Illinois has two parent training and information centers, one that serves the Chicagoland area and then Family Matters that serves the other 94 counties. So Carrie will be sharing in the chat different links to contact to contact our organization. You can also find out more about FRCD at their website, frcd.org. They are the parent center that serves the Chicagoland area. So in a very, very short overview, a long, long time ago, before all of you that are watching this to develop your own IEP were born, there was a law signed into effect called IDEA. And IDEA gives you the right to go to school with people who don't have disabilities and to learn in the same environment that they learn, because a long, long time ago, you wouldn't have had that right. So you have that right now. And the reason that you get to have that right is because you have a disability. And we've all sat down as a team and determined what supports, what help you may need to be able to achieve the same level of education that your friends are achieving in school. And we call that plan an IEP. An IEP is what we're going to learn all about today. We're going to learn about what exactly this plan is, because I'm sure you've all heard that before, IEP. In fact, some of you might even be attending your own meetings. So learning about this plan is going to help you understand the process better. So an IEP is much like a GPS system, which I know are like completely obsolete. So think about that Maps program on your phone, whether you use an Android or a Apple, or you have Google Maps or all the other ones. I don't know what they're called. There's a little MapQuest system on there. And you're going to point a destination, and your destination is to graduate high school. Okay, you want to be finished with high school. That's your destination. What types of turns left and right, backwards, sideways, U-turns do we need to do to get you to that destination? This IEP helps outline all of those turns and twists and back and forths. Way before you had an IEP, you had a domain meeting. And this domain meeting is where your teachers and your parents and other people that were part of your education, and possibly even you, sit down to discuss what kind of struggles you were having in school. And if you had a disability, and if that disability impacted your education in some way. So some examples of a way a disability might impact an education is if you were behind your peers in your academics, or like the grades that you receive. Maybe the grade level reading that you were at was behind your classmates, or how you did your math. It also could be your attention span was different than your friends. And if those things impact your education in some way, a referral happened. And that referral was sent to your school, and they evaluated you to determine if an IEP plan would be helpful. And in your case, they determined an IEP plan was. So now every year you have to have a meeting to talk about if that plan is still helpful for you. And if you're over age 14, you'll be attending these meetings too. So that's how this presentation helps you to prepare for those meetings and helps you to understand what's going on there. And your school works on this with you too. You sit down with your teachers and you talk about things that are helpful and things that you want to have. And in some cases, some schools even help you to put together a Canva presentation much like this of how you think your IEP should look like. But how long is this IEP meeting gonna last? It sounds like it's pretty intense, right? Most IEP meetings can last anywhere from 30 minutes to 1 hour. Now, there's no specific time regulation that IDEA or Illinois Special Education Code gives us that says how long they have to last, or how long they should be, or if they can only last up to this certain amount of time. It's very individualized, and you're going to hear this a lot, okay? Your IEP is very individualized based on your needs. So if you've got a lot of questions to ask, got a lot of data to evaluate, or your mom or your dad or you have some concerns, it could take a little bit longer, but it could take less depending on what you need. So who's going to be at this meeting? And I realize this mom here is cut off just a little bit, but who's going to be at this meeting? You're going to be at this meeting. That's you. Your parent or caregiver or legal guardian, sometimes your grandma and grandpa, they're going to be at this meeting too. Let's scoot this over a little bit here. Sorry, guys. Try to get this where you can see it better. There we go. Your general education teacher or a teacher that you may take the classes in that's not a special education teacher, there's different licensures or there's different education involved for each teacher. So a special education teacher and a general education teacher will both be at your meeting. You also are going to have your LEA or the person at your meeting that can make some decisions or commit the school to services. This might look like your special education coordinator. It might look like your principal. It might even be your superintendent of schools, but an LEA or someone that can commit to services for you will be at that meeting as well. There also could be other school staff there. If you're receiving certain types of therapies at school or certain types of extra supports, the other school staff can be there at the meeting as well. And then finally, for students who are over age 14, you're going to be developing a transition plan. And at your transition plan, other outside agencies may attend, like maybe you have a job outside of school and your boss could come, or maybe you're using some DRS services or Department of Rehabilitation Services and they could come. Maybe someone from your local community college could be there. So you, the captain of the team, are there. Your caregiver or parent is there as co-captain, and these other people on your team are there to support you because the meeting is all about you. So the very first thing we look at in your IEP is how awesome you are. Okay, we're going to look at your strengths. What are you good at? What do you like to do? What are your interests? We want to know all about the great things that have happened to you over the last year. Okay, so this might be that I did really well all year with reading and I improved my reading grade. Or it might be this year I decided what classes I wanted to take for next year because I'm interested in history. It could be that I really, really like Boy Scouts and I really like to be outside. These are your strengths, your interests, your special interests. And we need to know these things about you. We need to know how good you're doing. And every member of the team has been watching you to see what your strengths and interests are. We're also going to talk about your present levels of performance. This is going to be both for your academic and your functional performance. Now, academic skills mean how are you doing learning your studies at school? How are you doing in reading, math, science, social studies, history, art, all of these things. We want to know how you're doing. What are your grades look like? Okay, are you passing your classes? Are you struggling in some areas? So this area is known your present level of academic academic skills or academic performance. So this area is in your IEP document. You'll have a copy of this document that you're following along with at the meeting, and you'll see this there. The next one is your functional performance. How are you doing functionally in school? Are you communicating well? How's your behavior in school? How are you getting along with your friends in school? How are you moving from one place to another in school? How are you keeping your papers organized? This is all considered a functional part. How are you doing? How are you functioning in school? And that your teachers and the rest of your team will talk about how you're functioning in school, and you'll give input too. You'll say, I really struggle to get back and forth to class on time, or I am doing really great at math, but I'm still behind in reading. You can state these things as well, because who knows you best but you? The next area you're going to talk about is the concerns that you have. Now, sometimes these two areas will be flip-flopped. You'll talk about your concerns first, and then you'll talk about your areas of your present levels of academic and functional performance. So sometimes they'll be flip-flopped. On your IEP paperwork, it's going to say parent concerns, but you need to make sure that you're voicing your concerns as well, because this IEP is all about you at this point. So it's okay that if your parent has a concern that you have some too, you can talk before the meeting about the concern so they run face to face together. But at this point in your IEP, you should be talking about what your concerns are as well. So is there anything that we could fix for you at school? And what would that be? So our next page is an example. Okay. So the example is I'm failing in math class. That's my concern. I'm failing math. Why is this a problem? This is a problem because I don't understand the directions. And if I fail, I can't graduate high school. So how could we fix this? And you don't have to have the answer to this question while you're at the meeting. Okay, this can be the team can give input of how we can fix this. But in order to fix how we're failing math right now, after each assignment is given, the classroom teacher will check to make sure I can understand the directions. That will help me a lot to fix this problem. So this worksheet can be found in your shared drive to print out, and so you can help you prepare for your IEP meeting. But this is where you're going to list all your concerns. And this isn't about your grades, okay? If you're having trouble socially in school, if you're having trouble organizing things, if you're having trouble finding the lunchroom every day, it's okay to write these down there. This is your meeting. We need to talk about how to help you. All right. At this time, okay, sometimes we're going to have some evaluations to talk about. That means we've reevaluated everything for you and want to make sure the IEP is still the best it can be for you. Or we may just want to talk about report cards or the progress you've made up to your goals. So that's what we're going to talk about in this section of your IEP. Sometimes there's some pretty big language that's used in this area, and sometimes the school staff and staff like me and Carrie that talk IEPs all day long are going to use abbreviations and acronyms, and we're going to try to get through it really fast. You can ask us to slow down, and you can ask us to explain things to you in a better way. That's okay to do. We do this all day, so sometimes we forget that you don't understand some of the verbiage that we've used. So when we're talking about reports, if there's something that you disagree with or something that you don't understand, you ask someone from your school to explain it to you. That's what they're there to do. So I just said about those reports, let's talk about these goals. All right. In Illinois, we have a long-term goal. Meaning a goal we want to reach over the next school year. And adding to that goal, we have small benchmarks or steps towards reaching that goal. So an example of a goal, actually, can you put in the Q&A and give me some examples of a goal? What do you think a goal might look like? Anybody have a goal example they want to put in the Q&A box? I know sometimes it comes across a little bit slower for me. Hey. Ashley says 80% accuracy on reading. So Ashley has read her son's IEP before, or her daughter. I'm not going to say that I know who Ashley is, wink, wink. Okay, so they've read, okay, understanding the story when it comes, when read to one-on-one. So these are all great examples of goals. So it might be, sorry, I almost said Ashley's child's name. Johnny will increase his reading skills by 80% this school year. Now that sounds really complex for a goal. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, can you explain that better to me? And my teacher, my reading teacher, or whatever teacher's in the room is going to say, well, Johnny, right now you are in 8th grade, but your reading level is only at 5th grade. We want to help you get closer toward the 8th grade mark. So over this year, we're going to try to get you up 2 reading levels. Okay, so I think I said Johnny was at 4th grade. We're going to get him to all the way to 6th grade before the end of the school year. And we try to give him these goals that are achievable. So we don't want to say by the end of this year, Johnny, you're going to be reading at the same grade level as your peers. We don't want to say that. We want to give him short-term, or we're going to give him achievable goals. We're going to really measure the benchmarks that we give in between to make sure that Johnny can reach that goal in a timely manner. And we're also going to talk about ways that this goal is specific to Johnny. Okay, we call these goals SMART, and I did them way out of order, but we call these goals SMART for a reason, because they're specific, they're measurable, they're action oriented, they're realistic, and they're timed, meaning they're time oriented. Okay. So we're going to give you these goals, and we're going to monitor how often, what your progress is on these goals. The whole reason that we have goals is because no one is born knowing how to do everything. We all have to learn how to do things, and we all have to learn how to do things that are important to live as an adult in this world. So the example you can see here is this student is learning how to count money. Now, this is a skill that you start to learn in I think about first, second grade with counting money. Most students are able to master it quickly because they learn how to rope count in their head. This is a skill you don't even realize that you're picking up. And you can move on, you know how to count money, and you can achieve this goal and be able to count money out to someone when you buy a hamburger or a new pair of shoes. But for some students that have a disability that impacts their math skills, things like counting are hard for them to do. So we will work on this goal with different types of interventions and supports and different ways of teaching this student until they master that goal. So for example, this student is using, they're learning, how to make 19 cents here. So this student, however, is not in second grade. Maybe they're in third, fourth grade, maybe even high school, and they're still working on this goal. But it's important that the student have this skill in order to live as independently as possible after high school. So we were going to continue to work on this goal until the student masters this goal. Now, if this student's been working on this goal for 2 or 3 years and not had any improvement, every single year we're going to look at how we're supporting this student and if that goal is right for them, if we can change it up, if we can add more supports. This is a way we monitor your progress and our progress, as in how we are helping you to master this goal. Goals are important because it holds the adults that are in charge of your education plan, that are helping you with your education, it holds them accountable. Okay, it helps them to see, this is what I need to do, this is how I have to support the student, and we want this student to master this goal. It also measures your progress. Are you going to master this goal? We're going to look at this several times throughout the year. That's why you get report cards to show, how's the student doing? Is he going to make it to mastering this goal? And like I said, we measure them. So another part of your IEP is your special education services. So here we're going to talk about your placement, which is actually the last thing talked about in your IEP, the related services you may need, and the difference between accommodations and modifications. That's our next little part. So because of I want to help you to understand the next couple parts of this, we're going to talk about placement, our least restricted environment right now. But remember that least restricted environment is decided at the last bit of your IEP. Okay, so your time that you'll spend with your peers that don't have a disability, that will be decided after everything else. But because I want you to understand the concept, we're going to talk about it now. We call least restricted environment the cornerstone, or the reason the whole IDEA is built. It basically means that students with disabilities should be taught with students who don't have disabilities as much as possible. So we sit here at this meeting and we discuss all the supports you're going to need. We discuss all of your goals. We discuss all of the things you're good at and what things you're still struggling with before we decide where your placement should be. Okay? And that basically means, what education setting works best for me? Can I be in the general education environment with non-disabled peers all of the time? Can I be in the general education environment and use some time in the resource room? Maybe I need a self-contained classroom with other students with disabilities for part of the day, all of the day, a third of the day. Maybe I need to be taught at a therapeutic day program outside my school with students who also have disabilities. Maybe I need an education educational setting that is very restricted, as in I need a home or hospital placement. Okay, now home placement and hospital placement are different than homeschooling. We're not talking about homeschooling right now. So again, the law says that we have to talk about everything else in your IEP before we talk about placement. And that's because your placement is determined by what your needs are, not by what we can provide you. Okay. So we're going to talk about this at the very last part of your IEP, but because the next few things we're going to talk about determines placement, I wanted to talk about it first. Okay. So let's talk about related services. And this car, as you can see, was driving down the road and it's lost a couple wheels for whatever reason. It's lost some wheels going down the road. And we need to figure out what this car needs to go back down the road. So in the Q&A box, Carrie, if you can watch it for me, can you tell me what this car might need to go down the road? So if you can put in the Q&A box what you think the car might need to go down the road. Ashley says tires and rims. Brakes. Good job. Tires. Probably needs gas, right? Needs a driver. Needs a windshield. Doesn't look like windshield wipers in this climate. It looks pretty dry there, but it might need it. Might need coolant and an electrical system, right? So basically, every car needs these things to drive down the road in one way or another, right? But at the same time, there's lots of different makes and models of different types of cars. So one, you might have to shift with a gear shift. It might be a manual and not an automatic. One might take diesel or electric instead of gas. So all these cars are different. But in order to get to the destination the car's going, it needs certain things. So like everybody mentioned, tires, gas, all of the things, right? So think of related services as that. What does my car need to get down the road? So for a lot of us that have a disability, myself included, we need certain supports to get to our destination. Okay. And some of those supports are going to be offered by the school in the form of accommodations and modifications. We're going to talk about those in just a minute. But some of them need to be extra services that you receive. So this might be things like speech services, occupational therapy services, ABA, music therapy, physical therapy, extra transportation to and from school. These are what we call related services. And when the IEP team you included determines you may need this related service to get to your destination, okay, we have to put a goal in place and we have to put supports in place, and it has to be listed in your IEP because that means we are owing you this service. That's why the LEA comes to the meeting, because they can say, yes, I see that this student needs it, and yes, we'll commit to giving them speech services or whatever type of therapy that that you may need. Okay. So it's important to remember that if you are telling the team, I'm struggling in this area and I need the support, how can you help me? If they mention types of related services, that they're documented in the IEP. Now, some of them can be documented and only given during what they call consultation or observation, meaning you don't get any direct minutes with someone. Sometimes the general education teacher or special education teacher in the classroom will be giving the related service, and sometimes the therapist will be giving the service. So that's all written out for you in the IEP to understand it. And it's all noted in there, okay? But just remember that if the team says, Abby's really struggling with the way she communicates in the classroom, I think she might benefit from some speech therapy or communication therapy. That will be written in my IEP, that Abby needs the related service of communication therapy. Okay, how many minutes a week do you think she'll need? What should the goal look like that's given there? We determine the need for related services while we're doing your evaluations and why we're monitoring your progress towards your goals so far. Okay. Again, the related services we need don't determine what type of placement we need either. Now we're going to talk about the difference between accommodations and modifications. because this will be in your IEP as well. So a modification changes what you learn, okay? So let's think that we're in home ec class. We're in cooking class or foods class. I'm not exactly for sure which schools call it now, all right? So the assignment in the classroom is to make a cake inspired by your favorite holiday, and it has to be a 2-layered cake, and it has to have decorations on it, all right? But through my evaluations and through my progress monitoring, my teacher in the classroom has noticed that I really struggle with the baking skills and with the decoration skills. But I'm still in her class. I'm still learning things. So she might have me make a pie instead. So as you can see, the pie is less intricate. It doesn't have as many decorations on it, and it's not holiday themed. I'm still baking. I'm still learning how to cook in her class, but she's modifying the assignment for me. That doesn't mean I get a lesser grade than anybody else. It doesn't mean that I'm doing less work than anybody else. We're just doing what we call leveling the playing field. Okay, we're taking into account that you have a disability and that you have limitations, and we're helping you overcome those barriers or limitations. So you're still earning a grade in cooking class. Okay, you're just going to master the pie making skill instead of doing the cake making skill. Does that make sense? So here you're being graded. The assignment is to be graded on how you decorate the cake and how you stack the layers of the cake and how it's holiday themed. And you struggle with those. In fact, you didn't master the assignment previously about baking the pie. Okay, pies are different. I'm not a huge great baker, but let's pretend that I am, and Carrie can correct me if I'm missing a step with pies. But when you do a pie, you might make the crust, roll out the crust, put it in the pan, and then add your fruit and add a top, right? So there's less steps with making a pie. Maybe you make pie filling from scratch, or maybe you get it from a can like I do. But when you make a pie, there's less steps than decorating a cake like this and double layering the cake. So we're modifying the assignment so you can learn like everybody else, but you're mastering the skill at the level that you need. Okay, so we're changing the assignment for you. Now, an accommodation is different. Okay, an accommodation, we're not changing anything. Okay, we may be giving you extra help. Okay, we might be adding things to it. We're accommodating you. So in this assignment, still the same assignment. Okay, and the student that is next to me in classroom, maybe they have a low dexterity, or maybe they have trouble picking up heavier objects or balancing objects. Okay, so when they went to balance a heavy 2-layer cake, and I'm envisioning in my mind, guys, like a baking challenge, like the greatest bake off, the British Bake Off, where they have to carry the cakes up there. So imagine carrying a double-layered cake with it's all decorated and intricate up to the platform to be judged. Okay, when you're carrying this cake up there, if you have trouble carrying objects because that you have trouble gripping things or they're too heavy, this could be really difficult for you, but you're still able to bake and decorate. So we might give you the accommodation of making a smaller cake or cupcakes. So a cake and a cupcake are basically the same thing. You're still baking the batter, you're still decorating it. Yes, everything's Halloween themed because that's my life. But you're doing the same assignment. We're just adding extra things to it to be helpful. All right, so we're not changing it. The teacher's still going to grade you the same way on the same type of assignment. You're just making a smaller cake that's easier for you to carry instead of a bigger cake. All right, so let's play a small little game. Now, Carrie and I are teaching in the classroom, this game is fun and we go a little bit too long with it sometimes. So let's play this game. So I'm going to mention a accommodation or modification, and you're going to answer what you think it is. Okay. So I'm a student who has ADHD, meaning that it's a self-regulation problem. I have trouble focusing in the classroom. And when I go to take my test, I get to leave the classroom and go to a quieter place to take my test. Taking the same test as everybody else, I just do it in a different area. Is that an accommodation or a modification? Seeing lots of accommodations.
I have one modification.
One
Oh,
modification.
More than one.
Okay, so this is an accommodation. You're taking the same type of test as your friends. You're just taking it in a separate environment. Maybe that environment is someplace that's quieter. Maybe somebody there can help you read the question, the answers to the test, but you're being tested on the same material as everybody else. All right, let's do the next one. I am in my high school history class, and my friends or my classmates are writing a research paper on understanding the Civil War. I have dysgraphia and struggle with putting words to paper. So instead, my assignment is to make a poster board to describe the history about the Civil War. So we're both doing the same thing. We're both describing the Civil War. One is in a written format and one of it is in a poster board. Would that be an accommodation or a modification?
We have neither of accommodation.
And so this one's actually kind of a hard one. So the key factor here is we're both being tested on the same thing. Now, if I was instead in English class and I was being tested on how I write a research paper, or if I was in a grammar class, this would be different. But we're both being tested on the same thing. We're both seeing how we understand what we've been taught about the Civil War. So this is actually an accommodation. It's one that's not used a lot, and it's one that we like to let students know about. So you're doing the same amount of work. You're going to have to describe to your teacher or up in front of the class about what your pictures are. Sometimes instead of a poster board, a presentation, like a Canva presentation can be used, but they're not grading you on how you write the paper. They're grading you on what information you understand from learning about the Civil War. So this is actually an accommodation. Now, let's go into the next one. I just read a book and I have to write a book report in my grammar class that shows I understand how to write a book report. I struggle with this. And I need to see if I can make a Canva presentation or write the paper. Would this be an accommodation or a modification?
Modification.
That is correct. Modification, because we are changing on the things that I'm being graded on. Okay, so the assignment was to grade how I write a paper. I struggle with writing papers, so instead I want to write a presentation on Canva. So we're changing what I'm being graded on. All right, last one. My classroom friends are taking a multiplication test today in math class. I'm in third grade. We're taking a multiplication test. I'm still struggling to learn subtraction. So I'm taking a subtraction test instead of multiplication. Is this a modification or an accommodation? And it is a modification. Very good. Okay, let's go on. So we're going to talk about the last bit of the meeting. Again, this is where we were going to talk about placement. So after we've talked about all the supports you'll need, if you need related services, if you need accommodations and modifications, and sometimes there's extra accommodations and modification called assessment accommodations. So those will be there too. That means what type you'll need for tests. Those can be a little bit different. We've talked about your strengths. We've talked about your concerns. We've talked about your present levels. We've made some goals. Now we're going to talk about your placement. Okay, so where you're going to receive all these services, where's the best place for you to receive those services? Maybe you need a specialized reading curriculum that other students are also using in a class, and so then maybe you'll leave a general education reading class to take that specialized reading curriculum. Maybe you struggle in large group environments and need a smaller setting. Maybe you need very intensive therapy to work through your school day, so you might get that at a therapeutic day program. There's no right or wrong placement, okay? It's all about what you need to be successful. So we've determined that. We're at the end of the meeting. here's what's going to happen. This is a big misconception. A lot of parents out there thinks that at the end of this meeting, you've got to sign a paper that says, I want this, I agree with everything. And that's not quite how it works. You can sign a paper that says, I agree with everything and I want this IEP to go into effect right away. Okay, so you can sign that or you cannot sign that. And then you have 10 days to review everything. In that 10-day frame, you might want to go over it and look through everything, read through the notes, make sure all your concerns were listed properly. Maybe you want to reach out to Carrie or I here and say, hey, can you help me go through this and make sure I'm understanding this the way I'm supposed to understand it? But you don't actually sign your IEP into agreement. Okay, you don't actually sign that into agreement. You just, you kind of wait the 10 days and it goes into effect. If you don't like it, then you can call another meeting. You can go on to conflict resolution. We're not going to talk about that in this presentation. But the important thing to remember is at the end of this meeting, before you leave that room, you're going to get a finished copy of your IEP. That way you have that time to review it. Okay. And so you're going to have a copy of that IEP. And when we leave this room, okay, and your IEP goes into effect, whether that be immediately because you signed that paper or you wait your 10 days, we'll start to monitor your progress and you'll start to receive your services. So a few things I want to talk about before we end today. So Carrie and I do offer person-centered plans called MAPS plans. This is something that you can do in person or over Zoom like we're doing right now, and where we talk about what you want your IEP to look like and what you want your transition plan to look like. So in order to schedule one of those, you can contact our office. Carrie has an amazing presentation on student-led IEPs. I've put the link here in the presentation, so when you get a copy of the presentation, you can find it here. It is also on our website. You can just search for it under our video section of our website. So if you want to lead your IEP more independently with the support of your family and the support of your team, Carrie offers a great webinar on how to do that. Our contact information. We also offer video vlogs with our 2 self-advocates that contract through this. So you have The Amazing Zoe you can watch, or Self-Advocacy Rocks by Bridget Brown. So those can also both be found on our website. Here's some resources for today. And at this time, I'm going to stop the recording and see if anybody has any questions.